This video is about using ChatGPT and similar tools as an Agile coach. And I'm going to focus really on this very specific question. How can we leverage this when we're in a situation where we might want to have an Agile coach, but no longer do? So without further ado, let's take a look at ChatGPT. So we load it up. We log in. Obviously, if you haven't got a login, you're going to sign up. The sign up process is pretty straightforward. There is a paid version of this, which, by the way, I have indeed purchased. So I'm using the paid version, ChatGPT Plus. But in terms of the capabilities for actually just writing stuff and giving you answers, it's absolutely fantastic. There's no differences between the free version and the paid version at this time. So let's start by asking just a kind of question, right? Like, how do I support my Scrum Masters to run good retrospectives? Okay, so simple question. And by the way, it might give some great information, but one of the things that you have to be aware of is that ChatGPT doesn't always provide accurate information. And often, at least at the start, it's pretty surface level. Now, this is going pretty well. We're getting a lot of information here. I'm actually going to just let it keep going. But we're gonna take this a bit at a time and dig into this. Okay, so here we go. Retrospectives are an essential part of the Scrum process. I'm not going to read the whole response here. As a leader, you can support them by taking the following steps. So it's giving us a little bit of a formula here. Provide training. Ooh, boy, by the way, we offer training for Scrum Masters. Anyway, I did not program this in any way to do that. Set the tone, okay? Now, this is one thing that's really interesting, is that, you know, setting a safe space. We're going to dig into this a little bit. Define clear goals. Again, this is another thing we ought to dig into. Encourage participation. Fabulous. Follow up on action items. Really important. Continuously improve. Absolutely. So there's only two things here that as an expert, I notice that are maybe not perfect, but in overall perspective, this 6 steps is fantastic, generic management advice. Okay, so how can we take it further? Well, for one thing, we can dig into each of these points. So we can say something like, what is the best training to give to my Scrum Masters to help them improve their retrospectives? Okay. I've never asked this question before. I have no idea how it's going to respond. Scrum Master certification, Agile coaching certification. For what it's worth, facilitation training. Personally, I believe if your Scrum Masters already have an experience, and given our question, these number 3 and number 4 are going to be better than number 1 and number 2. I mean, yes, these are good generic ideas, but you might pick some. And so one thing to do is it's going to give us a kind of waffle word, right? It's going to say, there's no one size fits all solution. Okay, great. So you can start to say, well, my Scrum Masters all have their CSM certification, and they all have at least 1 year of experience. I'm just making this up again. The retrospectives that they run, I hear, are kind of boring, and they don't really result in much improvement. Let's change this. What would be my best one thing to do to help with this situation? So here we're giving ChatGPT some background. Now, it's so easy to anthropomorphize and think of this as being intelligent. And it's got some capabilities that are absolutely fantastic. But providing context often really helps. And you could provide other context. You could say, by the way, I don't know if it matters, but we are in the, let's say, financial services industry doing mobile development work. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. All right, might be time to evaluate the current approach and make some adjustments. Yeah, great. Okay, provide feedback. So again, kind of a generic management thing. Focus on engaging the team. Okay, be creative. Now this is interesting. Consider using different formats. So it's giving you some real specifics here, which is really interesting. Okay, and sometimes it's hard to get ChatGPT to be specific, but now that it's mentioned some specific things, if you've never heard of lean coffee or experienced it, or the 4 L's, then you can ask. So let's ask. I've never heard of the 4 L's. Please tell me more about it. I'd like to get my Scrum Masters to try new techniques, and this seems like an interesting one. Okay. 4 L's, retrospective, like learned. Okay, and now it's going to give you some information about the different categories, the 4 L's. And again, I'm not reading this carefully enough to tell you whether or not this is accurate information. But what's interesting is that it's reasonable. Just scanning it, and you'll notice that it's actually giving you a facilitation approach here to divide the team into small groups, bring them back, share reflections, identify common themes, and that's it. So we've gotten from a very generic question, how do I support my Scrum Masters to run good retrospectives, to something really concrete that you can actually now, as a manager, take to your Scrum Masters. And you can even go further. You could say, I would like to take this to my Scrum Masters. Can you please draft an email which explains the technique in detail and the reasons for using it. My name is Mishkin, and the email should be addressed generically to my Scrum Masters. Now, you'll notice here that I'm giving it some details about the email itself, because I want it to do the work, and ideally I just want to be able to copy and paste it into an email. So let's see what it comes up with. This is great already. Subject line is perfect. Dear Scrum Masters, awesome. Nice friendly intro. Retrospectives are important. Introduce a new technique. Simple technique, here's the overview, right? It's going through what each of the 4 L's are and explaining them. And then it hopefully will conclude, okay, great, try it out. Perfect. This is awesome. So now in just a few minutes, we've gone from, again, a very generic question to a really specific action item that we can take, and we can just copy and paste this into our email client and send it off to our Scrum Masters. Now, this is really the most basic way to use ChatGPT, but there is more. Okay, so let's start a new chat. Okay, so again, we're thinking about using ChatGPT as an Agile coach. So what's the next level here? Well, the next level is to tell ChatGPT much more background about what kind of agile coach we want them to be. So we can create a list like for the purposes of this conversation, you are an agile coach with expertise in the following topics. And so you could actually list out the topics that you know your agile coaches have expertise in. Scrum, Kanban, scaled agile framework, right? You might include some other things like facilitation, professional coaching. Then you want to build this up. So there's a few different approaches to doing this, but you can actually ask ChatGPT, do you understand? And it usually says yes. Okay, so then you can continue and give it more framework. For the purposes of this conversation, I am a manager of several Scrum Masters, and we work on developing mobile apps in a financial services company. Okay, so what we're doing is, again, we're giving it context about our situation, and we can give it details. Here are some details. I have 5 Scrum Masters named Jerry, Melinda, Hetal, Ahmad, and I don't know, Jane, say. Okay. Those 5 Scrum Masters work with a total of 30 people in 7 teams. And then we can be a little bit more specific, right? So Jerry works with 2 teams. I don't know, Linda works with 2 teams, and the rest work with 1 team each. Okay. Now, this context, again, do you understand? Okay, we just want to input the information so that it's there for the whole conversation. Okay, and then again, you can provide as much context as you want, and honestly, the more the better. There's just one trick here, which is this ChatGPT is a third-party system, so please avoid any personal identifiable information. Don't name your company if your company has policies about that sort of thing. Just be careful about what information you share here, because it is going to a third-party system, and we don't know for sure whether some of this information might actually get reflected back in other people's conversations. Okay, so now we can go back to digging into some questions, and we could go along the same thread that we had before. You'll notice that the threads we have are, the history is on the left-hand side here. So we could start back with our original question: how do I support my Scrum Masters to run good retrospectives? And chances are it's going to respond in a very similar way, just for what it's worth, but it never gives you exactly the same response unless you have some very specific things in mind about how you work with ChatGPT. But nevertheless, it is coming along in a very similar way, and we can follow, again, the same sequence of conversations. Now, I'm going to let that go for just a few moments. You'll see it's now 5 items that it gives you here for suggestions instead of, if we go back here, it was 6 items. So it is different, not substantially, but still interesting. Okay, so that's another thing that you can do, is you can say, please provide me with more options. Okay, and then it's gonna just make some more stuff up. And these are things that maybe are less likely to be useful, but it's nevertheless always possible to ask for more options. When you do this, generally speaking, it's going to start getting wonky if you go too far, right? And I'm not going to bother demonstrating this, but after the 4th or 5th time of asking for more options, it's either going to start repeating itself or coming up with options that are really like not actually very good options, right? But nevertheless, this is an important technique to use when you're looking for support as a manager. Now, the other thing is, as we saw in the last one, you can get it to write for you, and you can ask it for things like communication strategies, right? So I'm going to give this topic, this context again. Okay, so I'm going to put it into a new chat. So we're just going to quickly copy and paste the context from the last one. Okay, here's the other piece of context. Oops, nice selection. There we go. Copy and paste. All right. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this is that you can ask it to do things that maybe you might do as a manager, right? So please create a strategy for professional development for my Scrum Masters. They currently all have achieved their CSM certification and have at least 1 year of experience as a Scrum Master. What should I do next to help them on their professional development journey? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to dig into some of this stuff, and you can actually get it to create strategy documents. You start with an outline. You can get it to be really specific. I'm not going to go through all of this because it will take a while, but the point is you can see that it's actually got some, let's call it smarts, in terms of things that are a little bit more managerial. And you can, in fact, actually treat ChatGPT as its own kind of management assistant for you. Now, I'm going to stop sharing there. That's just a quick introduction to using ChatGPT as an Agile coach. I want to mention a few other things. First of all, it's based off of information that it's found on the internet. And unfortunately, not all the information, including some of the common and popular information that's out there, is accurate. And so there are very real situations where ChatGPT will come up with things that seem reasonable on the surface, but are actually inaccurate from the perspective of, say, the Scrum body of knowledge or the Kanban body of knowledge. And sometimes it can lead you a little bit astray. The other thing that you can do is, if you have a little bit of technical expertise, you can actually access the same systems through an API and pre-train it with a whole bunch of internal corporate stuff. So again, you have to be cautious about corporate privacy policies and so forth, but you can train the OpenAI underlying system to know about how your organization is doing certain things related to Agile, policies, procedures, customizations of the different methods, preferences or tendencies. Oh, We don't really use Kanban here. We just use Scrum and Safe. You might have corporate policies that you can actually inform ChatGPT of by uploading a fairly large corpus of material. One of the things that we do is we have a huge corpus of writing that's not available on the public internet about Agile coaching, Scrum, Kanban, Safe, all these things about transformation and leadership, things that we've done in terms of assessments and consulting reports for clients. And all of that stuff is in our own version of this system. And we've built that up, and it's something that, just in case you're interested, we can provide access to. I hope that you find ways to incorporate it into your day-to-day work as a manager. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help out. For what it's worth, my background, computer science background, AI was my focus. It was a long time ago, but I have done work in natural language processing, machine learning, and related fields. So I really know this stuff deeply. And if you have any questions about what's going on in the background, maybe you have some concerns about it, I'm absolutely happy to get on a call and spend some time talking about AI. It's one of my favorite topics. All right, take care. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much.